Hey everyone, it is your buddy here, ready to spill the beans on another one of my spectacular investing misadventures. Back when I was in my early 20s, fresh out of college, I thought I was hot stuff. I'd seen a few headlines, heard some whispers about crypto millionaires, and thought, this is it. This is my ticket to early retirement, a beachfront villa, and a life of leisure. Spoiler alert, it wasn't not even close. I remember staring at the charts, eyes glazed over, convinced that every dip was a buying opportunity and every peak meant I was a genius. My friends, let me tell you, that kind of thinking is a one-way street to financial ruin. I was so caught up in the hype, so desperate to make a quick buck that I completely ignored every single red flag waving in front of my face. I was the poster child for irrational exuberance, a true believer in the to-the-moon fantasy. One of my biggest regrets, and believe me, there are many, was going all in on some obscure altcoin that promised unbelievable returns. The website looked slick, the white paper was full of buzzwords, and the community was buzzing with excitement. I liquidated a significant chunk of my meager savings, the money I'd painstakingly accumulated from odd jobs and living on instant noodles, and threw it all into this digital black hole. I truly believed I was getting in on the ground floor of the next big thing. The price soared for a few days, and I felt like a king. I even started mentally furnishing that beachfront villa. Then, as quickly as it rose, it crashed hard. I watched in horror as my investment dwindled to almost nothing. It was a brutal wake-up call, like a punch to the gut that left me breathless. Another time, I fell for a classic pump and dump scheme. Someone in a Telegram group who presented themselves as a seasoned trader started hyping up a coin, giving us insider tips and telling us to buy. Naturally, being the naive 20-something I was, I listened. I bought in at the peak, only to watch as the insider and his friends dumped their holdings, leaving me and countless other eager newcomers holding the bag. The feeling of being manipulated, of having my trust exploited, was almost as painful as the financial loss itself. It was a harsh lesson in skepticism and the importance of due diligence. I learned that if something sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is. I also dabbled in short-term trading, thinking I could outsmart the market. I spend hours analyzing charts, looking for patterns, convinced I could predict the next move. I was constantly checking my phone, my sleep suffered, and my stress levels went through the roof. I was chasing every little fluctuation, trying to catch every upward swing and avoid every downward trend. It was exhausting and ultimately futile. I ended up making impulsive decisions based on emotion, buying high and selling low. A classic beginner-esque mistake. I lost more money than I cared to admit, all because I thought I could beat the system. The market, as I painfully learned, doesn't care about your hopes and dreams. The biggest mistake, though, wasn't just losing money. It was the mindset behind it. I was driven by a desperate desire for instant gratification, a belief that wealth could be created overnight without effort or understanding. I lacked a fundamental understanding of risk management. I put all my eggs in one volatile basket, completely ignoring the concept of diversification. I was emotionally invested, letting fear and greed dictate my actions. I didn't have a plan, a strategy, or even a basic understanding of what I was doing. I was essentially gambling, hoping for a lucky break. It took a while, and frankly, a significant amount of financial pain for me to finally get my head straight. I hit rock bottom, staring at my depleted bank account, feeling like a complete failure. That is when I decided enough was enough. I realized that if I ever wanted to achieve financial stability, I had to completely change my approach. I had to ditch the get-rich-quick mentality and embrace a long-term disciplined strategy. So, I started from scratch. I devoured books on personal finance, investment principles, and economic history. I learned about compounding interest, asset allocation, and the importance of a diversified portfolio. I studied market cycles, the difference between investing and speculating, and the power of patience. I realized that true wealth building is a marathon, not a sprint. It is about consistent, sensible decisions over time, not chasing fleeting opportunities. Now, I am certainly not a financial guru, and I am still learning every single day. But I can tell you this, my mindset has completely shifted. I no longer chase trends or listen to anonymous experts. I focus on steady growth, low-risk investments, and building a secure financial foundation. I've learned that boring can be beautiful when it comes to money, which brings me to what is happening right now in the financial world. I know a lot of you are probably feeling frustrated looking at your portfolios and seeing a sea of red. I get it. I've been there. It is tough when the market is cooperating, when everything seems to be going down. But this is where those hard-won lessons really come into play. Let's talk about some of the big news, specifically coming from the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements. For those who don't know, the BIS is essentially the central bank of central banks. When they speak, the financial world listens, and they just dropped a pretty significant update. They concluded something called Project Agora, which explored how tokenized central bank reserves could make cross-border payments faster and safer. Think about that for a second. Major players like the New York Fed, the Bank of England, and the Bank of Japan are now moving towards testing real value on blockchain rails. This isn't some fringe idea anymore. This is mainstream institutional adoption in the making. And this isn't happening in isolation. We're seeing a convergence of events. SWIFT, the global financial messaging network, announced major milestones with their blockchain-based shared ledger. The Bank of England just released draft rules for stablecoins, pushing tokenization and regulated digital assets. It feels like everything is happening all at once. Now, you might be thinking, that is great, but my crypto portfolio is still bleeding, and I hear you. The price action right now is exactly exciting, but we have to look beyond the immediate fluctuations. We need to understand the bigger picture. The foundational infrastructure for a new financial system is being built right before our eyes. Tokenization, which is the process of converting real-world assets into digital tokens on a blockchain, is a key piece of this puzzle. It is about efficiency, transparency, and unlocking new possibilities for finance. I remember an important post from Nate Garshi talking about how quickly major securities markets are heading towards full tokenization. People often don't grasp the speed of this transformation. Regulators, exchanges like the NYSE and NASDAQ, even the DTCC, everyone is getting involved. The DTCC, for instance, is starting its tokenization push in July. This is not a drill, this is happening, and here's where it gets really interesting for those of us who have been following Ripple. Ripple has been deeply embedded in these discussions and initiatives for a while now. They joined the BIS task force for cross-border payments back in August 2023, and if you look at the CPMI group, which is a committee within the BIS, you'll find Ripple right there alongside traditional financial giants. The BS project Agora explicitly states that cross-border payments are currently slow, costly, and opaque. This is exactly what Ripple and XRP have been trying to solve for years. They've been advocating for a more efficient, transparent, and cost-effective way to move value across borders. Project Agora aims to enable atomic settlement of wholesale cross-border transactions using tokenized central bank reserves and commercial bank deposits on a shared platform. This is a huge validation of the very problems Ripple has been addressing. What's more, if you look at the list of financial institutions involved in Project Agora, it's a who is who of global finance. And guess what? Many of them, like Amina Bank, Bank of America, BBVA, BNP, Paribas, BNY, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Mizuho, and Mufji Bank have direct connections and partnerships with Ripple. Even Euroclear has ties to Ripple. This isn't just a coincidence. It shows how deeply integrated Ripple already is within the traditional financial system. They not just knocking on the door, they already inside the house, helping to build the new architecture. Another critical piece of this puzzle, something Ripple has been emphasizing, is custody. Without secure, compliant custody solutions, scaling any digital asset strategy, including payments and tokenization, becomes incredibly difficult. Custody is the governance layer that everything else runs on. That is why Ripple acquiring Medico, a leading provider of digital asset custody, was such a significant move. It positions them as a trusted partner for institutional players looking to enter this new digital asset landscape. So, while the price charts might be discouraging right now, we need to zoom out and look at the fundamental shifts happening. We are witnessing the clear confirmation that tokenization is changing how the financial system works. This is the next major step in the evolution of finance. It is not something that will happen overnight, but it is happening. I remember the last peak for XRP. It was July last year, and from that point, we are only about 315 days out. Not even a full year for reference, it took 1295 days from XRP's previous peak to fully bottom out before the next big move. So 315 days is really nothing in the grand scheme of things. I understand the frustration with negative price action. I felt it myself back in 2022, but the difference now is that we are seeing undeniable evidence that the new system is being built, piece by piece. Ripple and the XRP ledger are playing a vital role in this transformation. The XRP ledger has been under continuous development for over 14 years, constantly upgrading and evolving. It is far ahead of many other networks in terms of its readiness for institutional adoption. Other networks like XLM, Hedera, and Quant are also significant players in this space, and it is exciting to see the innovation happening across the board. The convergence of tokenization, stablecoins, and digital payments is creating a new paradigm for finance. The biggest players in the world are talking about it, investing in it, and building it. The only thing missing right now is the price action that we all want to see. But I firmly believe that once all these pieces are fully in place, once the regulatory clarity is truly established, the price will reflect the underlying value and utility. We just have to be patient. We have to weather this storm. This isn't about getting rich quick. This is about being part of a fundamental shift in how money and value move around the world. It is about understanding the long game and having the conviction to stick with it. I've learned my lessons the hard way by chasing fleeting gains and ignoring the fundamentals. Don T, make the same mistakes I did. Focus on the long term, understand the technology, and trust the process. The market will eventually catch up to the innovation. It always does.